What Mercedes just did is insane, and specifically Lewis Hamilton. So we're going to go through that in today's video and 3 other stories following the Japan Grand Prix. So don't forget to like this video, and if you want more Mercedes F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into the first story of Max Verstappen's 2022 F1 title win, addressed by Lewis Hamilton, who promises a new battle in 2023. Lewis Hamilton briefly congratulated Max Verstappen to set the tone for their fierce rivalry to resume next season. Hamilton was never in the title race this season, as his Mercedes battled porpoising and performance issues, leaving Red Bull's Verstappen to romp home and eventually clinch glory at the F1 Japanese Grand Prix. The rivalry that peaked at the controversial 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix may have had a new chapter added in 2023 with renewed cars, Hamilton said. "Congrats to Max," he told Sky. "For us, we know what the problem is with our car. I believe that we, as a team, have not gone from world champions to not being able to build a good car. I have no doubts that we will have a better car for next year. Whether we rectify every issue that we face this year, we'll have to find out when we get there." So I think it is honestly interesting to see, because I think Hamilton has a lot of confidence that Mercedes are going to be able to be back at the top next season. Hamilton finished 5th at Suzuka after a 2-hour delay due to wet conditions. He opted not to give an opinion on Pierre Gasly's incident with the recovery vehicle, merely saying everyone will comment on it, so I don't care to. Hamilton said about racing in the wet, "The conditions restarting, it was awesome. That's what motor racing is about. I had a blast. It was so tough, so hard to see, really hard with the car skating around. The restart was perfect timing. I wish we could have gone longer. I don't feel frustrated. It was a sprint race. I'm happy we got points. We were just so slow in a straight line. As soon as I pull out, they could pull away. I'm glad I got in some laps for the fans. On to the next one," 7-time world champion Hamilton said. And I think this is really interesting to see, because I think Hamilton definitely had a great time this season, but I needed this season in order to get that fire back and that motivation to come back even stronger. And I think Mercedes can definitely do that and build a car that can really give him better chances. Now, Lewis Hamilton gives early assessment on the Mercedes 2023 chances as well. Lewis Hamilton said that he feels that Mercedes will have a better car next year in order to challenge up at the sharp end. The Zero Hours have endured a tricky 2022 campaign, which we went through, and also winless this season, and they have not been able to do anything about Max Verstappen winning a 2nd world championship this year, with Red Bull also on the brink of breaking Mercedes' stranglehold on the Constructors' Championship, a campaign they might not want to look back on too much once it's ended. But many in the team have said this season will be a big help in terms of them learning about the car, indeed themselves, as they bid to bounce back. Hamilton has backed his team to produce a better car for 2023 as well, with him saying that they know what they went wrong in terms of the 2022 model. So they said, we had some problems with the car. I believe that we as a team have not gone for the world championships to not being able to build car like we talked about. But he also did mention that a lot of the things that they are looking to improve will really get rid of porpoising in the future, and also really actually adapt to the new rules they are bringing next season. And I think that is something that definitely hurt them this season. I think that was one of the main reasons why it didn't go so well. They got off to a very bad start to the season, and I think that really affected the rest of the long-term play of it. Once you really have a bad start, especially in that first half of the season, it really sets you up not really for a great second half, and I think that's basically what happened. So if they get off to a strong start next season, I think it is definitely possible. Now moving on to the next story about George Russell calling out Mercedes to regroup after strange Japanese Grand Prix. So George Russell has called for Mercedes to regroup after a frustrating race at the Japanese Grand Prix. The Briton lined up in P8 on the grid after a 2-hour delay to the event getting underway due to heavy rainfall, eventually finished the shortened race in the same position, while teammate Lewis Hamilton made up 1 place by ending the day in 5th. Russell was left disappointed by his result and suggested that one aspect of the strategy had been particularly detrimental. "We need to review and see what we could have done better today," Russell said after the race at Suzuka. "I think we had a strong car than the result reflects, and that could have been B6 today. I think that stacking in the pit lane cost me positions, and that made it a frustrating afternoon. So we need to look at it and see what other options are there. I made some good overtakes after that, but it was a case of trying to recover what we had lost." Reflecting on the conditions in which the race took place, Russell was amongst those to voice his surprise at a recovery vehicle being on the track whilst the car were driving behind the safety car at the beginning of the event. The crane entered the track to collect Carlos Sainz's stricken Ferrari following his crash on lap 1, and Pierre Gasly appeared to have a near miss with the vehicle when trying to catch up with the pack. He was later handed a penalty for speeding under a red flag, and it has since been confirmed that the FIA will conduct an investigation into the event involving the deployment of recovery vehicles. It was a strange afternoon overall, Russell commented. The conditions at the beginning were impossible, not with the grip but in terms of visibility and the amount of spray this generation of cars generates, and we need to learn the right lessons from the incident with the recovery vehicle on track while we were running behind the safety car. And I think this definitely was something massive, especially if you were a big fan and while watching the race, you really did see how much spray there actually was going on. It was pretty much unlikely for any racer behind you to be able to see you in front. Now, Russell's struggles at Suzuka came 1 week after he finished outside of the points at the Singapore Grand Prix. The 24-year-old hopes that the team can bounce back in time for the final races on the calendar. Overall, this has been a difficult doubleheader for us. We're not scored the points we should have, so we need to regroup, focus on the final 4 races, and try to extract everything from the car we have under us, Russell explained. And of course, congratulations to Mac on his 2nd championship. The outcome has been clear for a while, but he had Red Bull and has done an exceptional job this year. And I think it's honestly great for him to show respect to someone like Max Verstappen, but I think Russell, Hamilton, also Mercedes as a team want to come after and finally be back on top. I think they are capable of doing that. There really is no doubt that I think it can be done, because with everything that is going on this season, I think a lot of the rule changes did cause a lot of problems for Mercedes early on, and that's basically where it all started. But I think Mercedes next year are looking to make those adjustments. Sometimes you need to make those mistakes in order to actually fix what's going on and actually be back on top, and that's definitely what they're going to do. But speaking of Red Bull, we all know about the F1 cost cap and what punishments they could actually receive. So Red Bull have been found guilty of breaking F1's budget cap, but what potential punishment could be handed out? The FIA's delayed report into F1 team spending found Red Bull to have overstepped last season's 145 million cap by less than 5%, or 7.25 million. And that's the thing. Yes, 5% may sound like a little bit, but if you take into account that it's 7.25 million, that is honestly huge. Toto Wolff actually said if he didn't stay within the guidelines and actually just added an extra $200,000 to his upgrades, he could have actually had Lewis Hamilton win last season in Abu Dhabi. But obviously he didn't do that because he was going to go over the cap. So I think that's basically what they're basically trying to tell you. 7.5 million is a lot of money, and that's a lot of upgrades you can make to a car in order for him to actually overtake, Lewis Hamilton, which he did in the Abu Dhabi race. Such an offense is classified as minor and the lower the 2 categories of the breach. F1's governing body says the process into determining a potential punishment had not yet been completed, so it's still yet to be decided. Mercedes and Ferrari have called for any violation of the cost cap to be met with severe punishment, though that is not expected. What penalty could be imposed? The FIA have several options when it comes to penalizing a minor breach of F1's financial regulations, and it ranged from a lot. So some of the lists actually from the FIA itself have said public reprimand. We also have deduction of Constructors' Championship points awarded for the championship that took place within the reporting period of the breach. We have deduction of Drivers' Championship points awarded for the championship that took place within the reporting period of the breach. So that one is actually a huge one, because if there actually is a deduction of Drivers' Championship points, then it would actually make Lewis Hamilton win his 8th and actually have that Abu Dhabi technically as a win and actually have his 8th title. So that would honestly be huge, and I think that's something that they can definitely take into account. Another thing is suspension from one or more stages of competition or competitions, excluding from the avoidance of doubt the race itself, limitations on ability to conduct aerodynamic or other testing, and reduction of the cost cap. So these are things that they have to take into account, but I think in theory this could actually have Lewis Hamilton claim his 8th. And we all know, a lot of you guys definitely know, that when it comes to Lewis Hamilton, one of the reasons why he's still racing till this day is to get that coveted 8th spot. Now the reason why he wants that 8th title is because Michael Schumacher and him are actually tied at 7. Lewis Hamilton has broke a bunch of other records as well, but he definitely wants to be the one with only 8, and I think that's something Lewis Hamilton is going for, especially next year. But I think it is a blessing in disguise, because we are able to see Lewis Hamilton continue to race at such a high level and continue to push the boundaries time and time again. With everything that is going on, Lewis Hamilton has said in a recent interview that he is looking to come back for another 3-5 years, because he doesn't feel himself slowing down any soon, and I think that is honestly the same for everyone else. I think with everything that is going on, Lewis Hamilton can definitely keep going and keep pushing and become something that is something very special. Even though he is getting older, I think his skill hasn't really changed that much, and you definitely saw it this year. I know he hasn't really performed where he was last season. However, I think when it comes to his driving ability, it's all still there. The car just didn't match the driver, and you can definitely see that as well with George Russell. George Russell in the car last year, or a couple of years ago when he was in Mercedes, at times he showed that he was able to be at some of the top positions or top places when he had that Mercedes car. So when it comes to Lewis Hamilton getting back to that top, all he really needs is that second car to be just as good, and I think that can definitely happen next season. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. Peace.